ಅದು ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟರ್ನಲ್ಲಿದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಲೈವ್. ಯಾರು ಯಾರು
Namaste. Good morning, all the dignitaries, guests, delegates. With great joy and immense pleasure, I feel privileged to extend a very warm welcome to all presented here. Today, we have a very special day because we have a very special eminent guest with us, Honorable Dr. Tathagata Ji, former Governor of Tripura and Meghalaya. We welcome you, sir. Thank you. Now I request our Honorable Director Sir to please felicitate our guest with memento and flowers. I request Shyam Sundar Sir also to present a token of appreciation to our honorable guest. Thank you, sir. I request Dr. Amiya Kumar Rath Sir to please welcome our guest with a fruit basket. Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Devendra Kabde Sir to please welcome our Director Sir with flowers. Thank you all. Thank you, dignitaries. May I now request our Honorable Director Sir, Professor S.C. Sharma Sir, to deliver the welcome address. Please, sir. Thank you.
Namaskar to all of you. Respected Dr. Tathagata Ji, former governor, just now he demitted the office of the governor of Shillong and Tripura, who is known to me since long. He was professor from Jadavpur University and then entered railway service. After that, I think you completed your LLB when you were in railways, and then he took up advocacy. Of course, he joined BJP in 1980s or 1980. I think Devendra Kabde will be introducing. He is a very distinguished personality and a good human being. Sir, we wholeheartedly welcome you, sir. And today's topic is on late Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. He has authored a biography on Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. As all of you know, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee ji was, he studied in Presidency College, then he did his MA in Bengali, and after that he was the youngest Vice Chancellor of Calcutta University. During that time, Rabindranath Tagore gave the convocation address. That was his formative period. And then he was the president of Hindu Mahasabha, and he was industries minister. He fell apart with the then government, and then he started Jansangh and so on. I think he'll explain. Sir will explain better. Sir, we wholeheartedly welcome you. Thank you very much, sir. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your warm welcome address that has made the room and participant cozy and comfortable. Thank you once again. Moving ahead with the program, may I now request Dr. Devender Kavde, Deputy Advisor NEC, to please introduce our eminent speaker.
Thanks, Dr. Vinita. Respected guest speaker, Dr. Tathagata ji, our Director Sharma ji, my dear colleagues. Actually, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Tathagata Rai. Friends, please listen it carefully. You know, you will feel motivated because while drafting his biodata, I also find myself stimulated by going through his career. It's so nice. Born on 1945, Tathagata ji served as the governor of Tripura from 2015 to 18 and the governor of Meghalaya from August 18 to the end of his term, August 2020, means recently. In between, he also has an additional charge of the office of governor of Arunachal Pradesh. Means in brief, he was the governor of 3 states. It's a big one. He was the 6th president of West Bengal State Unit of Bharatiya Janata Party from 2002 to 2006 and a member of BJP National Executive from 2002 until 15. Professor Tathagata Rai had a distinguished academic career also. This is a unique case, means politics plus administration plus in addition to academics also. He was ranked 6th in the higher secondary examination of West Bengal Board of Secondary Education. He studied civil engineering from Bengal Engineering College, now it is called Indian Institute of Engineering, Science and Technology, Shibpur. He also had a law degree, means 3 multiplied. Later he joined, after his education, IRSE, that is Indian Railway Service of Engineers. He worked as a general manager RITES, RITES, that is Rail India Technical and Economic Service. As a chief engineer also he was for design of metro railways in Calcutta. Professor Roy took voluntary retirement. See, in a permanent service, probably people will hardly move, but he took a risk. He took voluntary retirement from the railways in 1990 and joined Jadavpur University as a professor. That was something very interesting for me. And founder head of the Department of Construction Engineering at its campus in Calcutta. Salt Lake campus is there in Calcutta. He was the founder for the department. He is a fellow of Indian Institute of Engineers and life member of Indian Council of Arbitration. He functioned as an arbitrator in a number of engineer contracts until he was appointed governor of Tripura. Arbitrator work also is done just like our directors are. Tathagata ji was felicitated as an eminent engineer personality by the Institution of Engineers at the Engineering Congress held at Guwahati in December 15. He was also conferred, means he got a conferred the degree of D.Litt by Shri Jagdish Prasad Tripura University, Rajasthan, and in addition he was also conferred the degree of Doctor of Engineering by the National Institute of Technology, Agartala. Means many of the things are matching with our director concept. He also has such type of thing. So nice. Yes, something this is interesting. so Professor Roy writes extensively. This is also plus point. See, politics, administration, academics. Then he writes also. Again, this is in addition to our directors, both in English and his native Bengali, mostly in the area of socio-political. Some of his books I will share. There were many, but some interesting what I found. I think so. One of he has brought also. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Life and Times. It's a big one. So good. Then engineering contracts in India, law practices and management. Then my people uprooted the exodus of Hindus from East Pakistan and Bangladesh. And then many of his Bengali books are there, that is Bhamabantha Bhayankari and then Bharata Keshari Yoga Purusha. It's a good one. Yeah, oh so nice. Acha, that's Bengali version. So, sir, it's our fortunate to have such a distinguished, friends, it is our fortunate to have such a distinguished and versatile personality, having enormous experience of academics, again I say, academics, administration, politics, triple personality. We wholeheartedly welcome you, sir. It's our pleasure, sir. So many.
Thank you very much, sir, for introducing our eminent guest. So, sir is a multifaceted personality, and I hope and I am sure that after listening from Dr. Devendra Kavade about our distinguished guest, we all would like to listen to sir. So, may I now request our honorable guest, Dr. Tathagata Rai Sirji, to please enlighten us with this special address on the life of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. So, please, sir.
Dr. S.C. Sharma, Director of NAC, and the distinguished gathering here. I thank him, NAC, and all of you for having very kindly invited me to this place to deliver a lecture on a subject which is very dear to my heart, that is the life of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Also, for a chance to come to Bangalore, because, you know, some time back I saw on the TV that there was a debate going on whether Bangalore should be renamed as Bengaluru or not. And then somebody said that it should be renamed because there are so many Bengalis here. Actually, it brings back a lot of very pleasant memories because my daughter was educated only next door at the National Law School. She was a graduate of 1999. She came here, got a degree in law over here, and returned with a husband also, who is a Kannadiga. So I have so many connections with this place, and gives me great pleasure to come here. Now, Dr. Sharma was a little while back asking me what prompted me to write this biography of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. I had been an admirer of him for a long time, but I myself didn't know all that much about him until I started researching on him. See, in a meeting, I think sometime in the early years of this century, I heard Advani ji speak in Kolkata. He said that Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee is a son of this city, but it's a pity that so far no complete biography of his has been written. There are biographies, some are in Bengali, some are in English. I'm sure there are ones in Hindi also, but they mostly deal with his political phase of his life, particularly the last 3 years of his life when after he had founded the Bharatiya Jan Sangh. But the earlier years he had not mentioned this. There is nothing. So Advaniji's this statement or this observation, it put the idea in my head that why shouldn't I do it? That is something which is I may take a page out of a Nobel laureate. There was an American writer by the name of Toni Morrison. She got the Nobel Prize in 1993. Toni Morrison is a African American writer, lady. She had one of her sayings is that if there is a book that you'd very much like to read, but it has not been written yet, then you must be the one to write it. So I thought, why shouldn't I do it? And I set pen to paper, or rather I set finger to computer, and my process started. I got the unstinted cooperation of Sri Venkaiah Naidu, who is now the Vice President of India. At that time, he was the chairman of the Dr. Mukherjee's Riti Nas, which is a trust which looks after the perpetuation of the memory of Dr. Mukherjee and all that he did. And he was very forthcoming with a very lavish grant, all of which I could not use. But with that grant, that grant to a huge extent facilitated my research, and I started work over there. So I have documented it in this thing. The first edition of this book was published by Prabhat Prakashan of Delhi, who also simultaneously published a Hindi translation. The Hindi translation is theirs. And after a couple of years, Penguin Random House, worldwide publishers, they got interested in the book. And they approached me. So I, with the permission of Prabhat Prakashan, I took away the English copyright, English right from them. And I gave it to Penguin. Penguin slightly abridged this book, and this is before you, all of you. I am making a present of this copy to Dr. Sharma. With whatever he chooses to write, you can either keep it or you can donate it to the NAC library, whatever you please. Now, let me come to the life of this great man. What was so great about Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee? Unfortunately, the person has not received the publicity that he deserves for very strange reasons. Normally, a person is appreciated most because India is a multilingual country, multi-religious multilingual country. A person is normally appreciated the most by the people from the region where he comes from. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee comes from West Bengal, so normally one would expect that his admirers would be the most numerous in Bengal. Unfortunately, that is not so, and until recently there were very few people in West Bengal who even heard of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. This is because of a very pernicious philosophy that had pervaded the Bengali mind, particularly the Bengali Hindu mind. This pernicious philosophy I call Bengaleftism. That is a peculiar amalgam of Bengali thinking and leftism. Together it makes a very dangerous amalgam. Fortunately, it is dissolving now. The people of the state are getting rid of it, and I can claim a little bit of credit for being an agent, a small part of the machinery by which we are trying to disabuse the Bengali mind of this pernicious philosophy. So he is becoming known today. He was the second son of Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee. Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, as you might have heard, was a jurist as well as an educationist. He was judge of the Calcutta High Court. He was also a jurist of very extraordinary talent, but he is most famous because of what he did in the field of education. And he, so to say, decorated Calcutta University with the best minds of all over India and even abroad. So much so that I had heard that in the early 1930s, when Einstein was almost a persona non grata in Nazi Germany, he had even thought of coming to Calcutta University and doing work over here. Eventually decided to go to America. But Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, among the great minds that Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee managed to get into Calcutta University, two are easily two can very easily be remembered. One is Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who was a professor in some obscure college somewhere in Tamil Nadu, whom Sir Ashutosh brought to Calcutta University and made him the George V Professor of Mental and Moral Sciences. The other was Sir C.V. Raman. C.V. Raman was a senior officer in some revenue department of the government of India, and at that time he was posted in Burma. Burma and India were one country at that time, what is now Myanmar. But C.V. Raman, his passion was physics. And somehow Sir Ashutosh got wind of this, and he managed to get C.V. Raman to Calcutta University, and it is here that he got his Nobel Prize. The first Asian to get a Nobel Prize for a scientific subject for his discovery of the Raman effect. He eventually made Bangalore his home. That is one thing that connects my city and this city. So we come to his second son. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was, of course, just like Sir Ashutosh. He had a very distinguished academic career. He did MA with English honors, then he switched to, he did BA with English honors, then he switched to Bengali and did MA in Bengali, because Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee had just introduced Bengali in the MA, and he wanted his son to blaze a trail so that other people could be encouraged to study the subject. So Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, after that, after becoming a MA in Bengali, he also got a law degree, but at that time the legal system was such that unless you became a barrister from England, you did not have that standing in court. So he went to England and he had a grounding, he had a training as a barrister, and he became a bar at law. But meanwhile, Sir Ashutosh had decided to groom him. Sir Ashutosh's elder son was Rama Prasad Mukherjee, who eventually retired as a judge of the Calcutta High Court. Sir Ashutosh had intended Rama Prasad Mukherjee to be in his legal profession and Shyama Prasad Mukherjee to be in the field of education. But as luck would have it, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee first came into the field of education, then he dabbled in the legal profession but not very seriously, and eventually he came into politics, which possibly Sir Ashutosh never intended. But it was a boon for all of us, as I hope I will be able to convince you. You see, 1930s was a very tumultuous time for this country. In 1935, the British Parliament passed an act called the Government of India Act 1935. According to this Government of India Act, the administration of the Government of India, administration of the government would be carried out by a central government and provincial governments. At that time, what are known as states now used to be known as provinces. There would be election to the provinces, there would be election to a central assembly also, which eventually, the central assembly eventually became the parliament, and the provincial assemblies became the state legislative assemblies now. There would be elections, but there would not be universal adult suffrage. The electorate was confined to people like taxpayers, graduates, zamindars, chambers of commerce, etc. Also, the electorate was divided. That is to say, there was a Muslim electorate, there was a Christian electorate, there was an European electorate, and there was a general electorate. There was no electorate for Hindus. So, in this system, the elections first took place in 1937. In 1937, meanwhile, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee had joined the Kolkata University or Calcutta University at that time. Calcutta University back in 1922, and he had been made a syndicate member of the university, doubtless with influence from his father, but he proved himself equal to the task, as we will presently see. Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee died an early death in 1924 at the relatively early age of 60. And then after that, he had to, his torch had to be carried by Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee at that time was only 23 years old. But he carried on the work of Calcutta University with the same devotion and with so much energy that it won applause all round. And ultimately, in 1934, he was elected, or rather selected. At that time, it was selection by the Governor General, or by the Governor of the state. He was selected as the youngest Vice Chancellor of any Indian university, and so far I don't think his record has been surpassed by anyone else. Becoming, and Calcutta University, you must remember, is not the Calcutta University of today. It was a premier university of the, not only of India, but of the whole of Commonwealth. It had a huge jurisdiction. Bengal, of course, then Assam, then parts of Burma possibly, parts of Bihar and all that. So, becoming a Vice Chancellor of such an university at the age of only 33 was no joke, but he deserved it. Nobody ever said, his father had been dead some 10 years earlier, but nobody ever said that it is because of his father's influence that he did it. He was so much into the system and he worked so hard for the university and nobody grudged him this honor. Anyway, he was carrying on with the work of the heading the Calcutta University. He did some great work. Say, for instance, in 1937, he got Rabindranath Tagore to speak at the convocation, annual convocation of the university. Now, Tagore, when he was invited to speak, he made one condition, that he will speak in Bengali. Now, today it is nothing surprising that a governor or a guest at a convocation will speak in Bengali in Calcutta or in Canada, in Bangalore. But at that time it was unbelievable that to deliver a serious speech in any language other than English was unthinkable. But Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee not only agreed to Tagore's request, but he convinced the very powerful governor of Bengal then, his name was Sir John Anderson. He convinced Sir John Anderson to permit Tagore to speak like this. And thus he completed a very glorious innings of his Vice Chancellor, of his duty as Vice Chancellor in 38. Meanwhile, this election of 1937 took place, which I was just now referring to, under the Government of India Act of 1935. Now, in that election, which took place in Bengal in 1937, no party emerged as a victor or with absolute majority. There were three parties. One was Congress. The entire polity had started getting divided on religious lines. The Congress had the Hindu vote by and large, and a few Muslim votes here and there. Bengal, you must remember, at that time was a Muslim, undivided Bengal was a Muslim majority province with a marginal Muslim majority. Muslims were about 55% of the population, Hindus were about 45% of the population. Congress had the support of the Hindus and a few of the Muslims. Now, the Muslim vote was divided between the Muslim League, which was an avowedly communal party, they said so, and a party called the Krishak Mazdoor Praja Party. Krishak Praja Party. Krishak Praja Party was headed by a person called Fazlul Haq. The members and the leaders of this Krishak Praja Party were Muslims without a doubt, but they were not a communal party. They were actually a party of poor peasants. Most of the peasants in West Bengal, in Bengal at that time were peasants, were Muslims. The Hindus were mostly the landowners and people in the learned professions like lawyers, doctors, school teachers, professors. All these professions were dominated by the Hindus. Muslims were mostly peasants. There were a few zamindars, that is landlords among Muslims, but no middle class, so to say. So the lower class, that is the peasants, they voted, they had this party of Krishak Praja Party headed by Fazlul Haq, and Fazlul Haq himself was not a particularly communal person, and the agenda of his party was also not communal. They mostly worked for moratorium on farm loans, then lowering the interest rate on farm loans and stuff like that, giving relief to the peasants. So when this thing happened, the obvious thing would have been for the Congress and the Krishak Praja Party, Fazlul Haq's party, to form a coalition together so that they could give a reasonably secular administration to the state. Unfortunately and inexplicably, the Congress refused to form a coalition. Completely refused, pig-headedly they refused to form a coalition with Krishak Praja Party and said that we will sit in the opposition benches. Fazlul Haq tried very hard. They sat in a dinner and they argued until 2 o'clock in the morning. Fazlul Haq tried very hard, but he could not convince the Congress to do it. And eventually, by this, Congress pushed the Fazlul Haq and his party into the lap of the Muslim League. Now, you must understand the significance of this. One party is an avowedly communal party. The other party is a party which is largely Muslim but essentially non-communal. Now these two coming together, they formed a solid Muslim bloc, and because Muslim League had a very powerful leader in Muhammad Ali Jinnah, eventually the two parties sort of fused together. And Fazlul Haq was left only as a figurehead chief minister. The state administration, the provincial administration was run by the Muslim League, and there was terrible persecution of Hindus at that time. Hindus were not given any jobs at all. The Muslim League decided that in Bengal all jobs should henceforth go to Muslims because they are a majority and they have so far been deprived of their fair share of jobs. So until Muslims got 55% of the jobs, the Hindus were not to be given any jobs. Not only that, they said that until this quota was fulfilled, this arrangement would go on, and if necessary, a third-class graduate. At that time, third class, there used to be a third class in BA and MA also. Even a third-class MA would be allowed to teach in a prestigious government college like Presidency College, but no Hindu would be taken. And they made no bones about it. They made it absolutely clear without any sort of sugarcoating or anything. So at that time, some Hindu leaders rebelled, but they had no leadership. So they came to Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee and asked him to enter politics. And that is how Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee came into politics. Then after he came into politics, started a different chapter. He and Fazlul Haq happened to be personal friends because Fazlul Haq was Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee's chamber junior. Fazlul Haq was also an advocate, and Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, before becoming judge, he was an advocate. So Fazlul Haq was his chamber junior, last chamber junior, and by using this personal equation, he managed to get Fazlul Haq out of the clutches of Muslim League and formed a separate cabinet, which was called the Progressive Democratic Coalition. At that time, the governor of Bengal was a person called George Herbert, who was a very despicable person, a very sort of colonial India-hating Englishman. But in spite of that, Dr. Mukherjee could convince Fazlul Haq to come to this side, and get the Muslims out. Propaganda is afoot from rival quarters, as you can very well understand which quarters, that Dr. Mukherjee formed a coalition with the Muslim League. It is a total lie. It's a Goebbelsian lie. He actually got Fazlullah out of the clutches of the Muslim League. As a result, the Muslim League abused Dr. Fazlullah in very foul language. Anyway, never mind that. But that ministry did not last. Ministry did not last mainly because of the Governor Herbert. So after some time, the ministry lost power, and it's a very complicated thing. I don't want to take your time over it, but basically as a result of machinations of the governor, the ministry lost power. So Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee then sat in the opposition benches. Muslim League came to power, and there again the persecution of Hindus started in the province. Hindus were not only persecuted physically, that is to say, there were riots, and the riots were either fomented by the administration or not resisted by the police. The Hindus, as such, were relatively defenseless, so they suffered, and eventually it became almost, they were deprived totally of any kind of government jobs or government patronage. And then in 1943, there was this great Bengal famine, which was largely the work of the British, because they had taken away all the rice from the cultivators, from the farmers, and sent it to the military to feed the army. So as a result, the farmers or the cultivators or the poorer sections of the population had nothing to do, nothing to eat, and it is estimated that 30 to 50 lakhs of people died in the 1943 Great Bengal famine. Dr. Mukherjee did a fantastic job in arranging relief for these people. In spite of that, all these people died, but this process went on until 1945. In 1945, the war ended. Meanwhile, all the Congress leaders had been put in prison by the Viceroy at that time, Lord Linlithgow. Now, once the war was ended, the Congress leaders were released from prison, and the Congress leaders then had a sort of hero's welcome from the people. Then there was an election to the Central Assembly under that Government of India Act of 1935 that I spoke about a little while back. At that time, once again, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee tried to form a coalition with the Congress, because at that time Muslim League got all the Muslim support. But Congress did not form a coalition with the Congress refused, because Congress knew that they had so much Hindu support that they will romp home without anybody's support. So they left Dr. Mukherjee high and dry, and as a result, Dr. Mukherjee was totally sidelined and he had 2 very difficult years. Then came 1947, and one of the greatest achievements of Dr. Mukherjee's life was the creation of the state of West Bengal. This is a chapter which I consider to be his greatest achievement, and this is not well known even in my state of West Bengal. See, what happens is that from 1946, the talk of partition was going on. The talk of partition was going on, that India would be partitioned, and some people thought that no, it may not be partitioned. Gandhiji came to Calcutta and said, oh, vivisect me, but not India. But he eventually agreed to the partition of India. He did not agree to his own vivisection. So this process went on. Eventually, in 1947 March, Congress agreed to partition. Congress agreed to partition because they were very eager to catch hold of power. They could see power at the end of the day, and let Punjab go to hell, let Bengal go to hell, let us have power. So the Congress leaders, they acquiesced in partition, and Jinnah's willpower won. Jinnah, for all the horrible things that he was of, he had tremendous willpower, before whom even people like Patel and Nehru, of course, and Gandhiji, they all bent. As a result, they got their party. Can I have some? So they got their Pakistan. It was decided that Pakistan would be formed in two parts, West Pakistan and East Pakistan, with no connection in between. And Bengal being a Muslim majority country, it was also decided, I mean, Jinnah also argued that it's a Muslim majority province, so the whole of it should come to Pakistan. Now, if you look at the map, if whole of Bengal comes to Pakistan, then Assam gets completely separated. Assam will also, by normal process, would go to Pakistan. Dr. Mukherjee said, no, nothing doing. Because there are parts of Bengal which are solidly Hindu majority. So if you partition India, you must partition Bengal also. And you must take out the Bengali majority part of the country, of the province, and attach it to the rest of India. And he got the Congress to support him. This was his greatest achievement because it is because of that I, a Bengali Hindu, can hold my head high as an Indian citizen in this country and live here. Only because of him, because otherwise I would have been a Zimmi in Pakistan or today's Bangladesh, which is also an Islamic country. I can hold my head high and I can say that I'm a proud Indian citizen only because of that man and because the state of West Bengal was created. Not only the state of West Bengal was created, but Calcutta went to India. Calcutta was considered to be the prize. It is not the Calcutta of today, which is the third or fourth city of India. Possibly it will go even behind Bangalore in a few years. Calcutta was at that time considered to be the second city of the British Commonwealth. With 34 years of leftist rule and 10 years of the present quasi-leftist rule, it has deteriorated horribly, but at that time it was quite different. So the Muslim League was very, very emphatic that we must get Calcutta, but they did not get Calcutta. Calcutta was a Hindu majority city and it came to India. They are still sore about it. Even Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, which was the first Prime Minister of Bangladesh, he had written in his autobiography that he has regretted horribly that we lost Calcutta, we lost Calcutta. Why should we lose Calcutta? We should have got Calcutta. That is, it is there in his autobiography, which is in Bengali. So, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee managed to get West Bengal. Then, of course, unlike Punjab, the Eastern Partition had a slightly different history. See, the Eastern Party in Punjab, many of you know that there were bloody riots on both sides, both on the Indian side and the Pakistani side. So with the result that in a matter of some 5 months, by January 1948, all the Hindus and Sikhs came over from Western Punjab to Eastern Punjab, that is India, and all the Muslims from the Indian part of Punjab went over to the Western part. There was a complete exchange of population. But that did not take place in Bengal. Why? Because on the 15th of August, Mahatma Gandhi went and camped in Calcutta. Why did he camp in Calcutta? Why did he not camp in Amritsar, where bloody rioting was taking place? Nobody knows. Nobody has asked this question. But I have asked that question to myself, and I have got the answer that if he had gone to Amritsar, he would not have survived. He would not have survived because the passions were running so high. So he thought that he might come to Calcutta. These Bengalis are sentimental. We can somehow manage to convince them, and then we can sort of work out something, and I can get some fame out of it. So he came here. As a result, there was no exchange of population in Bengal, unlike Punjab, and a lot of problems ensued after that, which I shall come to presently. Now, there is a saying that politics is the art of the possible. This is the art of the possible. It was not possible for him to go to Amritsar, so he went to Calcutta. Anyway, so there was this partition of India and the partition of Bengal, and a very substantial number of Bengali Hindus, 29% of the population was left in East Pakistan. And their persecution did not start in the bloody way that it happened in Punjab. It started in a very subtle way. First, the Bengalis, the Hindus were big landowners in East Pakistan. Most of their land was requisitioned. Most of their property was requisitioned by the government. A person who was living in a palatial house, next day he was made to be sit in care of footpath. This process went on. As a result of that, the Hindus who had any money, they started emigrating to Indian part. And eventually in 1950, there was a pogrom. I don't know if you are accustomed to the term pogrom, P-O-G-R-O-M, pogrom. Pogrom is originally a Russian word. It is a word which signified the wanton persecution of Jews in Tsar's Russia. At that time, the Russians, as a sort of sport, they occasionally went to the Jewish areas and started killing Jews, just for fun. You know, the Jews never did them any harm, but just for fun, they would go and kill some Jews, and then in a couple of days, the feelings once again will die down and they will come back. But their job was done. They did a lot of looting, raping, etc. And this was called pogrom. It comes from the Russian word gromich, which means this kind of persecution. So pogrom started in 1950 January, as this country was celebrating its Republic Day, first Republic Day. That pogrom started, and what a horrible pogrom it was. It has not been recorded so far. There is only one book in English which has recorded this particular pogrom and its notoriety, its horrible nature, and that author of that book is yours truly. The name of that book is My People Uprooted. I'm sorry, I should have brought a copy of that also. But I would advise you, sir, or I'd request you, sir, to please get a copy of that book, put it in the library, and I'll write out the details. Get a copy of that book and put it in the library here because it records something. Now, during that time, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was a cabinet minister. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee had left earlier on, he was a member of the Hindu Mahasabha. Now, he had left the Hindu Mahasabha because he had some very serious differences with Savarkar. We have all heard of Savarkar. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee and Savarkar were very good friends. They had also more or less the same political philosophy, but the practical part of doing politics, they had serious differences. So Dr. Mukherjee left. And Dr. Mukherjee from 1948 was a leader without a party. But at the insistence of Mahatma Gandhi, he was made a member of the first cabinet of India, first cabinet of independent India, and from 1947, he remained the industries and supply minister in Nehru's cabinet. But in 1950, when this pogrom in East Pakistan started, he started trying to persuade Nehru to do something. Nehru would not do anything. Nehru kept on saying, no, that is a sovereign country, how can we interfere? He said that then who is going to interfere? These people are just going to die. There is state-sponsored persecution is going on there. Who is going to save them? Nehru said, no, how can we do it? There will be international repercussions, there will be this, there is that. Pandit Nehru was more worried about what was happening on the international scene than what was happening in India. That had always been his trend. So there will be international repercussions, there will be, India will lose its face, etc., etc. So it did nothing. As a result of that, this pogrom went on and some very horrible things had happened. I got it from an eyewitness. 12th of February, which is today is the 5th, and it's just 1 week away. On 12th of February, while a train or there is a bridge in Bangladesh that at that time East Pakistan across a river called Meghna. It's a wide river and the bridge was about 1 kilometer long. All trains crossing that bridge on that day of 12th of February were stopped in mid-span. All the Hindus were slaughtered and they were thrown into the river. There is no record of how many people died. I got it from an eyewitness. This is of course recorded, otherwise this has been, a lot of people have written in Bengali, but there is nothing written in English. I got it from an eyewitness who was in that train, and he was saved only because he was wearing a pair of pajamas instead of the customary dhoti which the Hindus at that time used to wear. Almost all Hindus wore dhotis, but this person for some reason was wearing a pair of pajamas, which is why he was taken to be a Muslim and he was spared. He told me how this, in what manner this terrible slaughter took place. This is only one incident. There were a lot of other incidents which took place during this time. During this, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was right through shouting, but inside the cabinet, because he was a member of the cabinet, he could not shout outside or he could not condemn it in the parliament. Eventually, he started running the government down in the parliament, telling that there's terrible injustice going on, terrible persecution, torture, death going on in East Pakistan, please do something. Nehru would not do anything. On the other hand, what Nehru did is, on the 8th of April 1950, he got Liaquat Ali Khan, who was the Prime Minister of Pakistan at that time, to pen a pact saying that the two countries will look after their own minorities properly, and the minorities, that is the Hindus who have come over from East Pakistan to India, will go back to East Pakistan, and the Muslims who had gone away from India to East Pakistan will come back to India. India took back all its refugees from East Pakistan. Very few Hindus went back to East Pakistan because they knew fully well what awaited them. And the few who went back, they didn't get their properties or their land back. And eventually they were also forced to come back over here. So that particular pact, if I may be permitted to say so, was given proper importance, proper honor by India, and it was used like toilet paper by Pakistan. But Nehru was totally oblivious of the facts, and we have penned a pact, job is over, all the Hindus are safe, the Pakistan government, Nawab Zada, Liaquat Ali Khan has assured me, so what more do I have to do? But he refused to see reality. As a result of that, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee resigned from the cabinet. Resigning from the central cabinet, the first, for independent India's first central cabinet in those days was no joke, but he did it. He came to Calcutta and had an enormous ovation, but he decided that he would not join back Hindu Mahasabha, or he would not go to the Congress. He would found a new party. At the same time, at this time, an organization called the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, RSS for short, of which many of you have heard, had decided to launch a political party, but not without itself going into politics. So the leader of the RSS at that time, whom we call the Sarsang Chalak, his name was Golwalkar, Madhav Sadashiv Rao Golwalkar. He had thought up this plan, and he had earmarked the people whom he was going to take out for forming this party. The only thing that he did not have is a leader, some leader who had some political experience. At that time, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee came out of the cabinet, and Guruji, as we call him, Guruji Golwalkar, saw that he was a golden opportunity, and the two met, and they hatched the plan of founding a party called Bharatiya Janata Sangh. But it didn't happen just like that. Those of you who have studied the recent political history of India would know that Jayaprakash Narayan in 1977 had also tried to get a lot of political parties together to form a Janata Party. And this Janata Party formed a cabinet in 1977. But the Janata Party did not last, and the cabinet was voted out of power in 1979. And then after that, Congress came back and Janata Party disintegrated. But Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, who founded a new party in 1950, the party was founded in 1951. I'll come presently to that. In 1951, when he founded the party, he took a great long time, more than a year, after he and Golwalkar decided to start the party. The two of them took more than a year to start the party formally. Why? Because he wanted to iron out all the differences. He wanted to sew all the parties together. And that is why Bharatiya Jan Sangh had lasted. Bharatiya Jan Sangh later on in 1977, when Jayaprakash Narayan gave this call, it gave itself up and coalesced and entered the Janata Party. But the Janata Party did not last, as a result of which the original Jan Sanghis came out of the Janata Party of Jayaprakash Narayan and formed a new party called the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is in charge of the central government in this country for the second term. This Bharatiya Janata Party has very few differences with the original Bharatiya Jan Sangh. So the difference is that Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee had the foresight to see what was needed to get together so many people to form a new party so that the party would last. And he took his time over doing it. It was first called the Bharatiya Lok Party, Bharatiya Lok Sangh, Indian People's Party, and eventually he decided on this name of Bharatiya Jan Sangh. And the party was founded in 1951 with a small public meeting in Delhi, in what are called Gandhi grounds now, near the Red Fort. And the party today, transformation of the party today is in charge of the central government. We have almost come to the end of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's life. The only thing that is left is his mysterious death. How did he die and why did he die? See, when we got our independence and we drafted our constitution, Sheikh Abdullah, the Kashmiri Muslim leader, was a member of the Constituent Assembly. He demanded that Kashmir, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, must have a special status. So other people, notably Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, said, what special status? It is either a part of India or it is not a part of India. It can't be both. It can't be half a part of India. No, but Nehru had blind faith in Sheikh Mohammad Abdullah, and Nehru kept on supporting him, with the result that eventually this article called 370 was put into the constitution, and under Article 370, the state of Jammu and Kashmir was an inalienable part of India, and once again not a part of India, God knows what it was. And then, to satisfy the people who were objecting to Jammu and Kashmir being part of India or not part of India, it was, this thing was under a heading temporary and transient provisions. It was known at that very time that Article 370 was not meant to last. But when Article 370 was abolished, we saw the hue and cry. It didn't last. Article 370 is gone now, gone forever in Jammu and Kashmir. Today, what used to be Jammu and Kashmir is a totally an inalienable part of India, thanks to the present government. Now, at that time, the position was quite different. In 1952-53, not only that, to enter the state of Jammu and Kashmir, an Indian citizen had to have a permit. That permit was to be given by the government of India, the Ministry of Home Affairs, government of India. Dr. Mukherjee also observed that between the people of Kashmir and the people of Jammu, the two regions are separated by the Pir Panjal mountains. Between these two things, there was a lot of disparity. The state was ruled largely by the people of the Kashmiri Muslims, who were lording it over the Jammu people, and the Jammu people were being persecuted. The Jammu people had a leader in Pandit Premnath Dogra. The Jammu people were culturally, religiously, linguistically different from the Kashmiri Muslims, but the Kashmiri Muslims held the sway. So they decided that, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee decided that we will have a movement or an agitation whereby the Kashmiri Muslims must cede space to the Dogras of Jammu. They didn't agree. Sheikh Abdullah didn't agree. So Shyama Prasad Mukherjee decided to go to Kashmir. He took a train, passenger train, from Delhi, made a lot of stops, and eventually reached Amritsar. At that time, the route to Amritsar to Kashmir went through Pathankot. Pathankot was the last railhead. Between Jammu and Pathankot, between Amritsar and Pathankot, he was met by an elderly gentleman who said, "Good morning, sir. I am the Deputy Commissioner of District of Gurdaspur. I am expecting an order from Delhi to arrest you because you are about to enter Kashmir without the state of Jammu and Kashmir without a permit." So Dr. Mukherjee said, "You do your duty. Whatever is your duty, you do that." Then they went on for some more time. Then this gentleman came back, this deputy commissioner, and he himself was quite surprised. He said, "No, sir, I have now received revised instructions which said that we should help you in every possible way to enter Jammu and Kashmir." This was a horrible conspiracy which Dr. Mukherjee could not catch. But actually, before this, a number of people, including some astrologers, some holy people, told him, "Don't go to Kashmir, don't go to Kashmir." Sucheta Kriplani, who later on became the chief minister of UP, Sucheta Kriplani was Bengali but married to a Sindhi. Sucheta Kriplani said, "Don't go to Kashmir, Nehru will not let you come back alive." Dr. Mukherjee said, "Why? I have no personal grudge against Nehru." He said, "No, you don't know Nehru. I know Nehru. He will not let you come back alive." And that is what happened. So when this deputy commissioner came and said that we have received instructions to escort you into Kashmir, Dr. Mukherjee did not smell a trap. So he crossed, there is a bridge at a place called Raghopur or something like that. Anyway, across the river Ravi. So he crossed the bridge, and the border between the two states of Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir was in the midpoint of that bridge. So at the midpoint of that bridge, he saw some people from Jammu and Kashmir police waiting. So Dr. Mukherjee went there and said that if you cross this line, we will arrest you. Then Dr. Mukherjee said that you do your duty. I have to go to Jammu because I have promised to Pandit Premnath Dogra that I am going there. Then those people said, "These are our orders." Then when Dr. Mukherjee crossed it, they arrested him and took him away to Srinagar. Bypassing Jammu, they took him away to Srinagar and they put him in a sort of makeshift jail. It was actually a windswept bungalow very far away from the city, without telephone, without any normal facilities, anything. Now the surprising thing is, everybody knew that Dr. Mukherjee was entering Kashmir without a permit. And this permit was supposed to be given by the Indian Home Ministry, not by the Kashmir government. So when the Kashmir police saw on the bridge that he was about to enter, alone he could not do anything against so many policemen. So all that the policemen had to do was to say, "No, you should not enter, we can't let you enter," and stop him from entering. No, but they let him enter and they arrested him. Why? Because eventually it came out that after crossing into Jammu and Kashmir, he went outside the jurisdiction of the Indian Supreme Court. The writ of the Indian Supreme Court would not run there. So he went to Kashmir. To make a long story short, he was put in that isolated bungalow. He suffered there, he suffered a heart attack, he was not properly looked after. Eventually, after the heart attack, he was taken to an ordinary hospital, not to any classy nursing home. He was at that time, mind you, the most important member of the opposition in the Indian Parliament. But he was taken to some makeshift government hospital, put in the gynecological ward. Normal precautions were not observed, and on the 23rd of June 1953, he breathed his last. This is a conspiracy, if there was ever a conspiracy. Now, the surprising thing is, when a person of the prominence of Dr. Mukherjee dies, far away from his family, from his people, from his friends, from his party, and in such suspicious circumstances, the least that should happen is an inquiry. Mahatma Gandhi was killed in full view of so many people. In spite of that, there were 2 inquiries. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, how he died is still not known, not definitely known. So there have been 5 inquiries so far, 5 inquiries. 3 by Indian authorities, 1 by the British, 1 by the Japanese. Then Indira Gandhi also died in full view of people. Into that also there have been an inquiry. But Nehru stonewalled all inquiries into Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's death. As a result of which, it was today, till today, it is not known how Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee died, but putting 2 and 2 together, we can make out. I had interviewed his daughter in Pune, and she said that she had visited the Kashmir a few months later after he was killed, and she happened to meet a person who said that we had been Hindus 1 generation earlier, now we have been converted, but inside me I am still a Hindu, and I know how Dr. Mukherjee was killed, he was administered some poison. Now, this is not a thing that I can corroborate or I can verify. I had it from her, and I have put it in my book. But this is the end of that great man. But great men do not die for no reason. It is because of his death, he was forgotten in his own state of Bengal, but because of his death, his party was formed, and the party blossomed into a major Indian party. Then it merged into Jayaprakash Narayan's Janata Party. Then it came out of Janata Party. It got only 2 seats in the parliament in 1984. Everybody said this is the end of this communal party. Then it got 88 seats in the next election. And then today, we all know the rest, as they say, is history. This is not a political lecture that I have given you. I am an active member of the Bharatiya Janata Party. I have been Swayamsevak of the RSS for a long time, but this is not a political lecture that I have given you. I have tried to familiarize you with the life of a person who sacrificed his life for a great cause. And that great cause, his sacrifice has been vindicated, because great men do not die for no reason. Great sacrifices don't go for no reason, and this one gave us a very good reason why he sacrificed his life, and I bow to him, and I will hold him in great honor for the rest of my life, and I want all of you to appreciate this. This book, which I had authored, it's available in 3 languages. There's a Bengali version, which very few of you may be able to read, but there's a Hindi version also. Some of you may like it. It's called the Apratim Nayak, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, and there's this English version. If any of you like to read it, you can get hold of it. It's available on Amazon. Not because it will fetch me some royalty, some money, that it will, but I think you will understand the life of a truly great man. Thank you very much for giving me a patient ear.
Thank you so much, sir. for your words of wisdom and enlightening us on the life of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee ji. This was really a wonderful talk. Indeed, it was a wonderful talk. And we would definitely like to read this book, sir. And the talk you had given to us, it truly reminded us on the sacrifices and contribution made by many freedom fighters, specifically to Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, sir. In 2 words, I would like to say, Khoob balo. So thank you once again, sir. Moving ahead, may I now request Dr. Ruchi Tripathi, Assistant Advisor NEC, to please come and deliver vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vinita ma'am. Very good afternoon to one and all here present. Honorable Dr. Tathagata Rai sir, former Governor of Tripura and Meghalaya, our Director Professor S.C. Sharma sir, and my dear colleagues. On this prestigious day of NAC, I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. Today, we are highly inspired and enlightened by the word of our eminent speaker, Dr. Tathagata Rai sir. On behalf of NAC, I give my heartful thanks to you, sir. NAC extremely plays a very important role in bringing quality in higher education all over the country. Rai sir, fortunately, with your wise word and presence of our NAC premises have become more auspicious. Thank you, sir. I am also thankful to our Director, Professor S.C. Sharma sir, for his valuable support, encouragement, and providing the opportunity for this program. Thank you, sir. On behalf of National Assessment and Accreditation Council, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all you for sparing your valuable time to make this event successful. Before conducting, let me express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to coordinators of our program, our Deputy Advisor, Dr. Devendra Kavre sir, and our admin consultant, Shri Chandrasekhar sir, Dr. Vinita Sahu, Assistant Advisor, Arun sir, Lakshman sir, and Ramappa sir are making this program memorable. These people should be appreciated for meticulously making this program possible in such a short span of time. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by our team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues, which includes our advisors, deputy advisors, assistant advisors, consultant, academic, administrative staff, SFLO, finance staff, ICT, Srikant sir, and Suresh ji, Manjunath, Vijay, Soumya, and all assistants who know their job and are result oriented. At the end, let me share a very good quote by Swami Vivekananda ji. Take up one idea, make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it, life. On that idea, let the brain, muscles, nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea and just leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success. So again, I express my gratitude all those who have contributed in one way or the other way make this program successful. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchi, to you too, for all the support at your end throughout the program. So the program is almost concluded. May I request the dignitaries and everybody presented here to please proceed for the group photo, which is arranged in the lawn, and from there we shall proceed for the lunch. Thank you. Thank you one and all.